As the world around us continues to change, Florida Blue remains focused on our commitment to help keep Florida at its healthiest. With Medicare Advantage HMO plans that received Medicare's highest rating, 5 out of 5 stars. And you can switch today. No need to wait for the annual enrollment period. So call or visit online now. It starts with the benefit of $0 monthly plan premiums. But staying healthy is now more important than ever. So Florida Blue Medicare's 5 stars go even further. With enhanced benefits like $0 outpatient mental health services, $0 primary care telehealth available 24/7, 90-day prescription supply by mail, and free support from neighborhood nurses. All part of our 5-star commitment to you. So call 866-308-6110 and get the 5-star rated Medicare HMO plan that's right for you. Our experts are standing by. Call and switch today.
This segment of the Blue Seat. We are so excited, as we always are, about our guest who serves in the Blue Seat. They are committing some time and talent to share with us some great skills that they've learned. And so this month, again, the excitement is even fueled and bubbled even higher because she just facilitated our ED roundtable, and that's LaFonda Wilson, CEO with Kids Inc., joining us in the blue seat, but donning her blue. So welcome, LaFonda.
Welcome. Thank you, Melina.
Yes, it is a pleasure and definitely honor. The subject matter that we're talking about is incredible, and I'll go and announce the subject, and then I'll tell you a little bit about LaFonda and why we really picked her for this segment. But the segment topic is setting boundaries with your board as well as with your staff, and they work really hand in hand, even though they're two different dynamics. But setting boundaries is consistent. And LaFonda has served Kids Inc. since 2004 in various capacities. I mean, LaFonda, you were raised in Kids Inc.
Pretty much.
Almost literally. And in case you don't know, LaFonda has her master's in business administration from St. Leo University. She is a member of Zeta Phi Beta. Could be a part of that blue as well, LaFonda, that's already in your closet, being a Zeta. And when she's not passionately serving the clients and the staff at Kids Inc., which of course employs close to 100 staff, you can find her enjoying time with her son. And I understand a little singing on the side there, LaFonda.
Yes, I do a little bit.
Just a little bit? Okay, awesome, that's nice. I'm gonna have to catch you off guard and get a little, got the little one out there for us, LaFonda. But tell us more about the mission of Kids Inc.
So at Kids Incorporated, I'm glad you asked about our mission. Our mission is supporting and educating families with young children through quality early learning, health, and family services. So that is our mission roundabout. And our vision holistically is that all children and families reach their full potential. So you can see how both our mission and our vision work hand in hand for our organization, because we're all about educating our families, but we're all about those babies and educating them as well.
Wonderful. Who could be? That's such a phenomenal mission. It's so well needed in our community. And how long has Kids Inc. been around?
Kids Incorporated has been around since 1972. So 49 years we have been in existence.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, wow. It's 49 years this month. So August of 1972 was when Kids Incorporated was established.
Oh, so next year it's Party Central at Kids Incorporated, right? The big 5-0.
Yes, we're going to be celebrating 50 years of existence. So I'm super excited about year 50 for Kids Incorporated.
Oh, I can only imagine the reunions of all the lives that y'all have touched over the last 50 years. It's absolutely incredible. Well, in tune with our subject, again, setting boundaries with your board and staff, we want to set some context to this conversation. So LaFonda, in the context and definition of boundaries, how would you define boundaries?
So boundaries, sometimes people have this negative thought of boundaries. Sometimes people see boundaries as like this wall or this like whole fence that you can't move. but boundaries are really soft. I personally feel that boundaries are the way you teach people to treat you. And it all goes into like them respecting who you are and what you do and the time that you spend doing what you do. It's all about that. It's not anything harsh, it's not anything bad, but it's that thing of how you kind of, like you set the rules for yourself. And I also consider boundaries as a part of self-care. Because if you don't have boundaries, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care about yourself, but you will get tired out a whole lot quicker than if you did have these boundaries set up.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I do see it as a matter of how you love yourself and teaching others how to treat you, and setting some expectations. And I don't think that's wrong,
Right.
but why do you think people have difficulty setting boundaries?
It's because of the negativity that comes along with boundaries. Because some people feel like if you set the boundaries, then you're keeping people away from you. You have this division between you and someone else or other people. And I just truly believe that myself, just thinking about myself in learning how to set boundaries, it was really difficult though for me. And that difficulty came with the negative thought process that I had about boundaries, because I felt like just what I said in the beginning, that boundaries were these brick walls that you put up to keep people out. But in all honesty, it's not that way. It's a soft line that you put in front of yourself that you say, okay, here's how I want you to interact with me. And there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, here's how I want you to interact with me. Here's the rules in dealing with me and my emotions and my time and everything about me. Here's that. And I'm laying this out for you of how you treat me and how you interact with me, how you deal with me. And a lot of people have an issue because they, in their mind, they're thinking, if I have a boundary, if I have this rule, if I teach someone how to treat me, then they're really not going to interact with me. It's going to be like a closed door, like they cannot get in, a locked door, actually, that they can't get in, they can't interact with me. And that's not really the way boundaries are. It took me a little bit of a time period to really realize that boundaries weren't bad. And so, if I can kind of give you an example of a boundary that I have set in the organization.
Oh,
Like,
please do. Please
so
do.
right now, I have a whiteboard on my door. And on my whiteboard, I have on my door, I have a 10:30 meeting for Blue Seat interview. And I put on there, and it's all nice. Please do not knock or enter into my office. Now, when you see that, note that saying LaFonda is in a meeting. That's also saying that LaFonda does not want to be disturbed at this time. Once she is available, she will open up her door and allow you in. But that's not saying that that I'm never going to have my door open. That's not saying that I'm going to be busy all day. That's just saying during this period of time, LaFonda is busy. So please do not disturb her. And that's all that is. It's teaching someone how to treat you. And I do that so that it doesn't have to be a rude interaction with staff. I do that also so that they'll know, hey, I am busy and I don't want to be disturbed at this time. But that's not anything mean. That's just saying right now, during this period of time, I can't be bothered. Not bothered in the sense of if there's an emergency, you can't interrupt me. If there is an emergency, believe me, they know when to actually come in and interrupt. And I have that list of things that I've let all the staff know of when it's an appropriate time to actually interrupt. And that's usually an emergency. Buildings on fire, buildings, hurricane, tornadoes, active shooter, something like that. Hey, interrupt me because I need to know whether my staff and the families are safe. So those are the kind of things when you're talking about boundaries. Those are the kind of things where it's like when to cross those boundaries. You understand?
I completely understand and can completely relate to that. For some reason, this like analogy just popped up in my head. Like think of a little toddler playing in a kiddie pool, and there's water in that kiddie pool, but that kiddie pool has a wall around it, and that wall is to protect the baby in the kiddie pool, right? It's to hold the water in. It is, it is setting a boundary around that kiddie pool, but it's the protection of the child that's inside, and it's also helping others around identify that the child is in that kiddie pool. There's like, if you kind of rethink how you look at boundaries, then it's like you were saying, it's the perception of it and change it into a positive thing, that terminology. So again, kind of just thinking about that little kid in the pool and protecting yourself. It's not a bad thing. That those boundaries is definitely a way of protecting yourself and your mental health, and even those around you and how they engage with you. Can you elaborate of what you may have established in terms of boundaries and dealing with your board and board relationships?
So in setting boundaries, like with my board, the boundaries were actually, and I'll just have to be very transparent, the boundaries with my board were already set from the previous executive director. And I will say I have a terrific board of directors because they have allowed me to do my job. So in that, I have open communication with my board. And so when things happen and things arise and all of that, I am the first one to send communication to my board. I start with my board chair for one, and then that trickles down to the remainder of the board as far as communicating. When they communicate back, most of the time my board communicates via email because that is the established style of communication that has been in place for years. And also they give me the autonomy to run the organization. They give me everything that I need in order for me to be able to make the decisions that are necessary for the staff and the families within this organization. And one of the things that I always say with my board is I do have an open door policy, and I also send out communications of when I'm out, when I'm in, and all of that, so that they are aware and know that they can communicate freely with me. But then also, if they do need me, if they need me like immediately and I am out, then I have what you call an assistant. And so
I want to be like you one day there, LaFonda. That is, yeah, definitely a
don't get
nice
me wrong.
addition to the team. Yeah, to have that.
So don't get me wrong. So my assistant does other things other than just assisting me. So he has his own set of things that he has to accomplish. But when I am out of the office, then I give access. So that's a part of that. I give access to my calendar, to my emails, to my assistant so that he can help to filter what needs to get to me. So if a board member is needing to communicate with me on a time that I am off, then that board member can get to me through my assistant. And The reason why I do that as well is because my assistant also knows how to filter in those communications. And he also knows like when to actually disturb me or distract me while I am either off or out of the office. Because sometimes my out of office might not necessarily mean that I'm off that day, but I'm out of the office because I might be at another facility, or I might be at a meeting, or I might be like I am now on a Zoom call. And so, my assistant helps to filter some of that communication to ensure that I get what I need as far as communicating with my board members. It's not that they can't reach me, because I will say this, all board members have my cell phone number. But here's the thing, is they don't communicate with me via my cell phone number, even though they have the access to. But how the communication style has been set up is via email. And so they have stuck with that. And I am so appreciative that my board has been so great at sticking with the way that we've communicated in the past with the previous CEO, and to now with me, because it does make for a great relationship. It makes for great communication. We're able to go back and track like what I've sent out to them, what they've received, what they've communicated back with me. And that's that trail of information that they need and I need from them. And so that's how it's been established, and that's how it's stuck.
I think that that's fantastic that you have that history of establishing how you communicate with the board. Because yes, in this particular role as executive directors and CEOs, you can find yourself being hit from all directions if you allowed it, with calls to the office, emails, text messages. There's so many means of reaching someone now that you can be inundated with the communication. So I think that's incredible that you've established that, or at least there has been that consistency from one leader to the next, and you found that that's worked for you.
And let me add this, Felina. So the other thing too is in setting boundaries. So one of the things that I've established specifically with my board chair is we have a set monthly meeting where the board chair and I sit down and we talk about all things organization. This also helps with not having like the last minute calls right before board meetings happen. This also helps to alleviate some of that, let me call her on her cell phone kind of deal. Having that established set time to talk to your board chair is needed. I don't know, and I can't speak for the previous CEO before me, but I know that has been established since I've been in this seat, and setting up that time where you talk to the board chair, because they do, the board chair, they do need to know like what's going on with the organization, where you are with certain things, previous months meetings, action items, those kind of things, where you are with those. Those kind of things need to be discussed with the board chair so that when the meeting happens, they are not surprised and caught off guard by reports from the executive director or CEO, or other reports as far as fiscal, and depending upon what committees that you have, they're not caught off guard by the discussions that are coming from those committees. And so I'll just say I've set that up, and that's a part of setting boundaries, is having those set meetings as well with your board chair, having the set meetings for your committees, having the set meetings for your board of directors meetings as well. Because if you don't have those things set up and established, then it will look like, and it will be chaos. And that will make for more stress for you as a leader. That would make a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of chaos. And yeah, it will. I'm telling you.
Well, LaFonda, it's so interesting that you say that too, because as a CEO and executive director, you have established boundaries, and then sharing those boundaries is also teaching your board chair to establish and set boundaries, where that hopefully filters to the rest of your committee chairs and other leaders on your board as well, that they can follow suit to what's been established from that leadership level and top down level. And I think that's so impressive to be able to do that. I'm also recognizing in this conversation that there needs to be a relinquish of control within this whole setting boundaries aspect as well, that you as a leader have to relinquish some of that control and having your finger on the pulse of necessarily everything, and giving your team the freedom to make decisions by far is a big part of it. So let's talk and address those CEOs, presidents, and EDs who do not have the luxury of having an assistant, LaFonda. You know? But let's say you're a CEO and executive director and you are struggling with setting boundaries. What advice would you give to someone to start? You know, this is a kind of a self-reflection, but so how would you, what advice would you provide to that person?
I would just say start small. Just start with the small things. As far as I started with just notes on my door. That's how I started. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do. It's just put a little note on your door. But I tell you, the more you do it, the easier it'll be. And so now I put my schedule on my door. So I put like when I have like Zoom meetings, or when I'll be out of office, or when I'll be working from home, all of those things. I put those things on my door because then it makes it easier for people to then know that, okay, during this time, she's going to be busy during this time. Or if I'm like working on something, like say I'm working on a grant, because I am the grant writer in my organization. So I don't hire anybody. I don't have a grant writer and all of that. So I am the grant writer in my organization. So when you're in the middle of doing numbers and all of that other stuff, you know, those important things that you have to do as far as for those who can't hire grant writers and things like that, then you have to set those boundaries of when you can be disturbed, when it's okay to disturb, and when it's not okay to disturb. And so I'll put a note, writing grant, please do not walk into my office. Nice little note there and all of that. When I am available, what I will do then is I will open up my door, because when I open my door, that means there is no note that's showing on my door. My door is now open. And so that gives the person who wants to come in to disturb me the latitude to do that. And a lot of times they'll bother me depending upon what it is. If it's something about we need to spend some money or something like that, then the CFO, she'll come in, we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. And then once we're done, then she'll go back. If I need to then close my door, then I will. We do here at Kids Incorporated, we do have an open door policy, but sometimes you have to set when that door will actually be open for someone to like come in. And I talk a lot about like just coming in and distracting and disturbing me, because that's the easiest thing for somebody to relate to boundaries. There could be other things like emotional boundaries and all of that. How someone speaks to you, you set the tone for how someone talks and interacts with you as well. But the easiest way to see those boundaries is by open and closed doors, schedules, those kind of things. That's the easiest way. But they can easily be related to those emotional type boundaries as well. Because even in this job, you also have to teach people how to talk to you and interact with you as well. Because boundaries aren't just time and distractions and disturbing you. It's, okay, how do I talk to LaFonda? How does LaFonda accept how I talk to her? And that's another way of looking at boundaries as well. And for me, it's me giving you the same respect that I would want in return in how you interact and talk to me. So if you talk to me rudely, then at that point, then we're going to have a different type of discussion of how you're supposed to speak to me, LaFonda. If I don't speak to you in a rude manner, I do not expect it back to me in a rude manner. And that's working relationships. That's also personal relationships, because you do have to set boundaries with your friends as well. You know, your friends have to know what your boundaries are, and you teach them how to treat you. You teach them all of that. The same thing that you would relay in work, you would relay in personal as well. So it's not just, the time constraint. We talk a lot about that, but it does go on the emotional side too. So
Yeah.
I will, add that little piece there.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, the emotional piece of it as well. I think sometimes that does come into play when we're looking at professional boundaries in an office setting and working with the team, how sometimes the personal or emotional boundaries can sometimes cross over. And some people have either a difficult time embracing or looking at the work-life balance versus work-life integration. And I think that's a whole nother subject matter that we could probably spend an hour talking about. And that to me is, I'm finding that that's become a big debate, work-life balance versus work-life integration. There's positives and negatives about both terminologies, and I think it's very fascinating. But in terms of boundaries, LaFonda, thank you so much for being transparent, sharing your insight and your experience and your journey with how you've gotten to be in that place of establishing boundaries. Well, I've got my last question for you, which I've been asking everybody on the Blue Seat, is, due to COVID-19 and this global pandemic, what is one thing that you've learned about yourself over this past year and a half?
So during the pandemic, I will just say this: there was no blueprint on how to lead any organization during the pandemic. No blueprint at all. Nothing had ever been established for how do you lead an organization through a pandemic. And so I have definitely learned that I am a leader, that I can stand on my 2 feet, and I am able to bring a group of all different types of individuals together for us to maneuver through this pandemic together. Because I can't run the organization by myself. It takes a team. It does. And I've learned that as a leader, I have been resilient. I have learned that I have the strength that I need in order for me to make the difficult decisions that it has been in order for the organization to be successful throughout this pandemic. And so I will say that even though as difficult as it was, and the blueprint that did not exist was never established before me, because we've never been through a pandemic. I think in the whole years that I've been alive, it's like, I will say it's been eye-opening, and I have learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I will say that.
Amen. Well, high five to you virtually there. And I think that is fantastic. It's a beautiful strength that I think a number of people have been able to realize about themselves. Like, well, I'm going to add that to the list. So yes, I am creative. Yes, I am determined. I am ambitious. Whoa, and I am definitely resilient. So you can add that to the list of accomplishments. Well, again, LaFonda, thank you. I just can't say thank you enough for being completely transparent as usual, and always open to share your knowledge and your wisdom. Continued success with you and your team at Kids Incorporated. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Felina, for inviting me.
You are welcome. Our pleasure.